In this episode, I'm going to show you how to create this template using footage and text animation. This is a very special episode dedicated to and supporting the people who are suffering in Ukraine. We'll be going way over 7 minutes. In fact, this will be my longest and most in-depth tutorial in the 6 years I've been doing this channel. I'll be throwing a ton of tips, tricks, and shortcuts at you, so you definitely don't want to miss this episode. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode. My name is Jeff Knight. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and share this video and my channel with anyone that you know who may benefit from these tutorials. Okay, so I wanted to do something kind of special today. We're actually going to be doing a tutorial that's pretty involved, but it is for a good cause. I've never done anything political on my channel, because this isn't a political channel. And even today's episode isn't necessarily political, but it is about something going on in the world. Okay, so as everybody knows, there's this war raging in Ukraine, and I wanted to dedicate this episode to the people in Ukraine who are going through all of the atrocities that we see every day, and you're going to be learning a lot of really cool things. It's just going to be kind of housed in this messaging for the people of Ukraine. And speaking of which, while this war is going on, if you buy anything at our 7AE store, and also if you buy my Udemy course, The Power of Shape Layers, which I highly encourage you to do, half of those proceeds will also go to benefit the people in Ukraine. So please support a great cause, support this channel, and just be a part of something larger than ourselves. So in this episode, not going to worry about the 7 minutes. We're going to take as long as we need to take to do it. So I hope you stick around for the entire tutorial, and let's dive right in. This episode is sponsored by the good people over at Envato Elements. Check them out using the link in the description below and get an amazing 70% off your first month. Envato Elements has everything a serious motion graphic designer could possibly want and need. All the footage and images used in this episode are from Envato Elements. In addition, they have templates, sound effects, music, fonts, stock footage, stock images, and so much more. Like I said, they offer literally everything you could possibly want and need. Check out their promo at the end of this tutorial and visit them today using the link in the description below. Get unlimited downloads with your membership, and make sure to tell them that Jeff Knight from 7-Minute AE Tutorials sent you. Once you sign up, you won't remember how you ever animated before Envato Elements. Okay, so here's our composition. It's a 1920 by 1080 comp. I have some footage and an image that I'm using I pulled from Envato Elements. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is to pre-comp my footage because it makes it so much easier if you need to swap out footage later on. So let's create our first pre-comp. You can just click this button right here that says create a new composition, and I'm going to call this footage 1. No matter what size my footage or my images are, for the background, I like to make all of my pre-comps the same size as my main comp because it just makes it so much easier dealing with sizing issues. Drag this up into my pre-comp folder here, and the first clip is the city of Kiev, and as you can see, the footage is too large. So S for scale, and I believe I can bring this down to 50%. There we go. That way it fills up the entire composition. So now I want to go ahead and start adding in some color correction. And I like to use an adjustment layer to do my color correction because it's so much easier to toggle off and on, especially if you have multiple effects that you'll be using. So layer, new adjustment layer. And I want to add in color correction curves, color correction tritone, and then let's add in color correction tint. I like to use tritone and tint, but not use them at their default settings. I like to kind of tweak it to kind of give it more like a rough kind of look. The look I'm going to go for in this is something kind of sad, maybe kind of war-torn. So this is one way of doing that. So let's set our tint to 25% to kind of bring it down a little bit. And then tritone, the setting goes kind of in the opposite direction. Whereas with tint, it says amount to tint. 100% is the full amount. 0% is no tint. With tritone, it's blend with original. So it's actually the opposite. So right now, we're blending 0% with the original, which shows the full effect. So blend with original, let's set that to 75. So we're actually using the same percentage of each one of these effects. And you can see it's just a slight difference. And actually, I'm going to make this maybe, we'll say 60. So it's a little bit, has a little bit more of that grungier look. And then our curves is really where we're going to get this deeper kind of look. So let's go ahead and punch up the contrast, maybe make it a little bit lighter, something like that. Oh, and one more effect I want to add in. If you go over to your effects and presets, type in vignette. There are a ton of ways to add a vignette. You can either use a solid and then mask it out and set the mask to subtract. After Effects actually has a pretty good vignette built in, and it's super quick. You just double click vignette and then you have an automatic vignette. I'm going to kind of tweak the settings on this though a little bit. Actually, I'll leave that open. For the mount, let's set that to 150, and for angle of view, make that 50. So we just kind of have this more of like a dramatic kind of feel. And I'm going to kind of keep messing with my curves, bring up the green channel, maybe kind of add a little bit of green, maybe contrast the green out a little bit. We'll bring up our red channel and kind of take some of that away. We're just trying to get more of like a cinematic kind of feel to this. So just going to tweak these settings. The curves especially are going to be really dependent on the footage you use. The idea is to show you how to use curves to add to this, but I wouldn't necessarily follow my exact settings for curves because that's 100% dependent on my footage. So this is kind of the basic look that I'm going for. As I mentioned, when you add your color correction to an adjustment layer, you can just toggle it off and on and see the difference. It also makes it a lot easier whenever you want to apply the same effects to another composition. So back over to our project panel. There are a few things I highly recommend that you guys do whenever you're doing any After Effects project. Organization. I always make a folder for my pre-comps, and I highly recommend that you label all of your layers. I recommend that you color code all of your groups, and I recommend that you trim your layers. You wouldn't believe how many motion graphic designers don't do this. And in this case, we're building a template. So if you are building something like a template, you want it to give it to other people, you want it to be super organized to make their lives as easy as possible. So we have this folder for pre-comps and we have footage 1. So I'm going to just duplicate that, Control or Command D. And now we have footage 2. So now if we go into footage 2, since it's a copy, we have the same exact thing that we had before. Well, now if you just grab another piece of footage, I'm going to grab this destroyed buildings, click on your layer that you want to swap out, and then Option or Alt drag and place it on top. It will swap it out. Now the thing is it's going to keep the same exact settings that you had before. And as you can see, is set to 50% scale because our previous clip was already set to that. So luckily in this case, both video files were the same exact size. If this had been a different size video, then it may not have looked right. But whenever you are laying footage over another piece of footage, or you're like replacing it, just keep in mind that it will keep the same settings that you had for the first one. So let's just kind of scrub through here, make sure that our color correction works. I think it does. You can kind of pull your footage down. This is another reason why I like to pre-comp. You can adjust your footage, like where you want to start or stop. And when it's in a pre-comp, it's so much easier than being in your main comp. So I notice this footage eventually goes up a little bit higher. So I'm going to kind of just pull it down a little bit to get to a different starting place. I like to put numbers at the end of my pre-comp names. So as long as your name ends in a number, After Effects will automatically add the ascending number to whatever pre-comp that you're duplicating. So see, we can highlight footage 1, Control or Command D, and it says footage 3. Just a little tip, whenever you do pre-comps like this, end your name for the pre-comp in a number. So instead of going 1 footage, 2 footage, go footage 1, footage 2, like that. Okay, so let's go into footage 3. I'm going to click on that layer, and I've got one more piece of footage here, and it's going to be our Ukraine flag. So Option or Alt and drag. As you can see, we're still set to 50%. So all of these clips were 4K, which is very helpful. Okay, so now let's go to our main comp. I've already created the comp here. I'm just going to drag in footage 1, 2, and 3. And I've set this main comp to 15 seconds. The pre-comps are set to 7 seconds. I like to do that so that way I kind of have some handles, but they're going to go for about maybe 5.5 seconds each. Bring over our first footage pre-comp to about maybe 5.5. And if you click on the layer for this footage 2, hit your left bracket, it will automatically drag it over. Okay, and then go to maybe like 11 seconds, click on footage 3, and again, left bracket, and it will bring it over to where your playhead is. And I actually want to reverse the order of these, so we have footage 1 on the bottom. So as you can see, these clips just run from one to the next with a hard cut, and I want to do something a little bit more creative than that. Let's go to the beginning of our footage 2 layer, hit I to go to the beginning of the layer. And then we're going to add in a new shape layer, and just left bracket to drag that over. Open up our shape layer, and let's add in a rectangle. And we're going to add in a fill. We want to make this rectangle 1920 by 1080 because we want it to be the size of our composition. And remember, shape layers are measured in pixels, not percentages. So this rectangle path is 1920 by 1080. Okay, and so let's set a keyframe at the beginning of our size setting. We'll be adding some expressions and some animation, and they need to go specifically where I'm showing you they need to go, because if you animate a scale or a size that's not the correct one, you won't get the same effect. So we're inside of our rectangle path on our size setting. We're going to put a keyframe, then shift page down 1, 2 to go for 20 frames. Put another keyframe there. So this is our full end of our animation. Hit I to go back to the beginning. And let's just change our 1080 value to 0. Okay, and now let's right click on this second keyframe. Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. Go to our graph editor. And let me just pull this up so you can see a little bit better. And basically what we're going to do is grab this second keyframe, pull it over all the way to the left. So it starts off fast and it ends up slow. So that's the basic animation or how the box is going to open up. Select our footage 2 layer. And I've had a few episodes where I talked about not using alpha matte. That was to reveal text. In this case, we want to use an alpha matte to reveal our footage. And some of the scenarios where using alpha matte is ideal. So just change footage 2, track matte to alpha matte. As we can see, the way it opens up is like that. So just kind of a different way of revealing footage. I want to take a look at this image I grabbed. This is of the Ukraine flag. So we're going to be using these colors throughout this template. And I want to add something a little bit more to this animation here. So I want to have something that just kind of is a little bit more interesting. So let's duplicate this shape layer and let's turn it back on now. Okay, so now we have this red. Click on your fill. And then I'm going to select this blue. So the way I did that was I just double clicked on the image. It opened it up so that way I can take a look at it, but I can also color drop the colors from this flag so that we're going to be using that blue. Now let's move this shape layer underneath and we want to rename this to blue stripe. Like I mentioned earlier, you do want to label your layers and we'll call this matte. You also want to color code our sections. So select all 3 of those and let's make that yellow. We're going to take our blue stripe layer, move it before. We have something that looks kind of like this. The blue comes in first and then it reveals the footage. And actually let's duplicate that shape layer and we want to name this one yellow stripe. And with that layer selected, our fill is revealed and we want to click on fill and then color pick this yellow. Let's move this blue stripe, the one that's on the bottom down. So this is going to be the transition. So it's just something a little bit more interesting. And actually one of the things I want to do, because this is kind of a sadder kind of feel, let's tweak the colors of this. So we have our blue and our yellow, but let's make the blue a little bit deeper. And then also select our yellow and maybe make that a little bit darker. So that way it's not quite so vibrant. That's our transition right there. Now we can do the same thing for this third footage pre-comp. So let's go ahead and make that orange, this matte layer here, duplicate that, move it above footage 3, left bracket to move it over. Go ahead and make that orange. And then we can set our footage 3 pre-comp to alpha matte. So that's going to have the same kind of reveal. However, let's do it a little bit differently. So if you select the matte layer, hit U to bring up your keyframes, go to the beginning by selecting I. Our values are 1920. That means that the size spans the width of our comp, but the height is 0 pixels. So we want to reverse that. So let's make 1920 and make our Y value 1080 because our comp is 1920 by 1080. And as you can see right here, it spans the height of our comp. Now it opens up in just a different way. And we want to duplicate this the way that we did our other shape layers. So we want to duplicate the matte layer, turn that back on. We'll call this blue stripe. We want to move that underneath our footage layer. And then if we click on our blue stripe layer from our yellow group and just click on fill, just Command or Control C to copy that. Then click back on our blue stripe for our orange layer, click on fill, Control or Command V. So we get the same blue. And then we want to duplicate that blue stripe layer and again go back down to our yellow group, click on the yellow stripe layer, click fill, Command or Control C to copy, and go back up to our orange group. We want to name this yellow stripe and then click on the fill and then Command or Control V to get that yellow. Hopefully that made sense. I'm going to play this real quick just so you have an idea of where we are right now. That opens up in a horizontal way, and then the third clip opens up in a vertical way. So it's the same kind of animation, basically, but it's just one opens up horizontally, one opens up vertically. So just a kind of a more interesting way of revealing this footage. Now I just want to add one final thing over all of our footage. Go up to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and then let's rename this to Blur. Okay, and go to Effect, and with a blur and sharpen, add in a fast box blur. We want to repeat our edge pixels. I always recommend that if you're using fast box blur, repeat your edge pixels. And we're going to set our blur radius to 5. So if you take off the repeat edge pixels, you'll get this weird thing around the edges here. So you can see how it doesn't quite extend beyond it. So repeat edge pixels and you'll be good to go. Set this back to fit. Okay, and then I went over this in a quick tip recently. I believe it was the last quick tip. If you hit Command or Control R, bring up your rulers, bring down a ruler and right click. You can set this position. We'll set it to like 220. Bring down another ruler and right click, edit position. Remember we're at 1920 by 1080. So 1080 minus 220. And that will put these rulers at the same distance from the edge of our comp. I'm going to grab our rectangle tool here and we're just going to mask this out. However, I want our top and bottom to be blurred out, not the center. So this, when you go to your mask, change it from add to subtract. So that way now the top and bottom are blurred out. F for feather, make that about 150 pixels. Okay, so if we go up to the view option, we can see there's this option for show guides and it's checked. And if you just click that, it hides your guides. It doesn't remove them. You can actually do that using clear guides, but something to keep in mind if you're using guides and you don't want to get rid of them, but you don't want to see them, just click on show guides, and to get rid of them, click on it again. So now it's time to add in some text. And this is a lot of really, really good information. Is something that you need to pay attention to because it can get a little complicated, but I'm going to show you some really cool tricks with some expressions. I'm going to show you how to save those expressions as presets. So you don't need to really even know what the expressions mean or do. All you have to do is add it. And I'm going to put these expressions in the description below. And then once you add it, we're going to save it as a preset. Then you just drop it into any other text layer or shape layer, depending on which one you're doing. And that'll make more sense in just a second. So I want to use a font called Gilroy. I'm going to add this font into the project files folder. So that way, if you like this font, you can use it on your projects also. Type in stand with, and let's go ahead and I'm going to change my paragraph settings to centered, align that. The thing that's really important about the way we're doing this is you want to make your design first. You don't want to animate as you're going. Let's first set up all of our parameters and then we'll go back and animate. Okay, so the main thing I want to do is lock my anchor point to the center of my text. See, I can always go to transform, center anchor point, layer content, but then now watch as I adjust my font size, the anchor point starts to move around a little bit. So there is an expression to lock that. And I'm going to put this expression in the description below. So here is the anchor point expression. So I'm going to grab that, copy it, reduce that. So with our stand with layer highlighted, click A, and then we want to Option or Alt click on anchor point, and then just Control V to paste it. So now our anchor point is going to be stuck in the middle of our text. So see, no matter how I resize this anchor point will always stay in the middle, which is very, very important for what we're doing. Okay, so now we need to add in a text box. The way we're going to create this is the text box will conform to whatever text we have. So it's going to be dynamic and interactive. So that way, whatever you change your text to, the box will automatically resize itself to. So first, let's go in here and go layer, new shape layer. And we'll open a shape layer. And first, let's add in a group. We're going to call that group resizable box. And you need to do this exactly the way I'm doing it with adding in a group first. Go in and then add a rectangle within the group and then also add in a fill. So now we want our fill, see it defaults to red. We want it to be that same blue that we've been using. So we can go down to blue stripe, just select that layer. And then our shape layer control panel, we get our settings here. So just click on fill and we're going to copy this blue, go back to our text box here where it's red, click that, Control V to get that blue. Okay, so now we have an expression and we're going to put it right here on this rectangle path size. So again, you don't need to remember this, and I'm actually going to show you how to save it as a preset. Once we get this in, we'll do that real quick, and then I'll show you how to add it back in. You just want to grab this expression, which is in the description, and notice it says pick whip layer. I'll explain what that means in a second. I'm going to copy that, then I'm going to Option or Alt click my size, Control V, and notice we get an error, but that's because of this pick whip layer. So if we select that, and now you want to use the pick whip that's for the expression, which is right here. Not this one, make sure you're using this one. And just go up to your text for stand with, click away, and it should snap to it. Notice that it didn't. And the reason why is because our positioning settings are off. So before we go forward, hit P for position on shape layer, P for position on stand with. And now we're going to parent our position from the text box to the position of stand with. And it will snap right to it. I want a little bit more of a buffer around this text box. Let's open that back up, go to contents, and inside of resizable box, click your add button and just add in offset paths. And it's going to put like a 10 pixel border around whatever box you have. If we open that up, we can see right here that the amount is 10. So you can increase this if you want. I think the default 10 is just fine. Let's save this as a preset real quick so that way I can show you how to add it back in later. So we have two expressions. We have one for the center anchor point. Let's do that one first. Click on anchor point, go to animation, save animation preset. Then you want to make sure you're in your documents, Adobe, the version you're using 2021, user presets, and I have this folder for 7-minute AE. So let's go ahead and name this, I'll say dynamic anchor point, and then just hit return. Let that save. And now let's go ahead and go down to our box. Let's go ahead and rename this text box. And while we're at it, see, this is going to be going over our pink footage layer. So let's just go ahead and make both of those layers. Select those and make those layers pink as well. Okay, so now click on text box, hit EE to bring up your expression. It's this expression right here with the size control, not the position control. And actually, let's just go ahead and open up our layer. Let's go ahead and grab the resizable box. That way everything in here will come with it. Go to animation, save animation preset. It's going to bring us back to the last folder we saved in, which was my 7-minute AE. Call this resizable box and hit return. Let that save. Okay, and now let's clear out this search here. We'll go over to animation presets, user presets, 7-minute AE, and here are our two expressions. So if we select anchor point, Option or Alt click to get rid of the expression. With anchor point selected, double click on dynamic anchor point, and we see that it comes on. And then same thing for this resizable text box. Actually, we can do this. Get rid of the shape layer altogether. Now double click on resizable box and it brings it back in. Now you still have to make some adjustments. Hit EE and you have this comp stand width, which is actually correct, but in the future you would have to go ahead and parent that. Now remember, the reason why it's not going to it exactly is because we have to set its position. So position on both layers and then pick up the position of the box to the text, and there we are again. And if we notice, go ahead and open that back up. It actually came in, the resizable box came in with the offset paths because that was within the resizable box that we saved. So let's go ahead and make this pink again, and we'll call this text box. This is our first text box. Now that we have that set, we can make copies of this, and it's going to take some more tweaking, but it will go much faster. Select both of those, Control D to duplicate, and now bring up our position. You have to reset the position of the second text box because it's still going to this first layer here. We want this text box position to be parented to this layer. We'll just say Ukraine. So stand with Ukraine. Let's bring Ukraine down and notice how the text box isn't going around Ukraine. And that's because if you bring up our expression EE, this expression is still referring to stand with. So we want to parent that to Ukraine. So whenever you make duplications of these, you have to reset your position and your expression. It doesn't take more than a couple of seconds and it's worth it. Okay, so now let's move Ukraine over, bring down our ruler, make a new shape layer. And within this shape layer, we want to add a path, and we're just going to put a path right above that top text box. We want to add in a stroke. And our stroke defaults to white. So let's make that white instead this blue. I'm just color picking that blue right there. And then let's make our stroke width from 2. Let's put it up to 7. And then I'm gonna go up here on not show my guides again. And if I click away, we can kind of see how it's looking. Now that blue kind of blends in. So let's actually, I'm going to change that from blue to yellow. So I'm going to grab this yellow right here. So that way we can see a little bit better. Okay. And let me see, let's just make sure that we are on point here. I'll bring up my guides again. So we want to go from edge to edge of that text box. And I'm on quarter quality. Let me put that to full so that we can see it better. Take away my guides again. Okay, so now all we need to do is start to animate this. First, let's change the shape layer name to line. Make that pink. And then I want to add in one more thing. And this will make your life a lot easier. Layer, new, null object. And we want to call this text 1 control. We just want to bring everything in here from line down to text box, and we want to parent that to this controller. So now this controller has full control, and you can move this wherever you want. So let's go ahead and animate this. Okay, so let's start with our line. We'll start with a trim paths. So just add in trim paths, put a keyframe for end, move it down to 0%, shift page down twice to go for 20 frames, make that 100%, start, put a keyframe at 0%, shift page down twice. On the start percentage, move up to 100%. So we're going to start with the end percentage 0 to 100%, and then start goes 0 to 100%. And so if we watch that play back, actually I just want to solo this so that way you can see it a lot better. It's just a very simple line animation. Highlight these middle 2 keyframes, keyframe assistant, easy ease. For the 100% end keyframe, let's pull the handle all the way to the left so it goes fast and ends slow. And for this top one, for start percentage at 0, we're going to bring it in the opposite direction. So the effect is going to be something kind of like this. So now, one of the things about this text animation this is built specifically to have a text box around your text. One of the drawbacks is that you cannot use text animators with this, and that's a whole other tutorial. But just keep in mind, whenever you use this in any kind of template, the way we're doing it, the only control you have is over position, scale, rotation at the layer level. So let's hit P for position and put a keyframe, shift page down twice, goes to 420 frames, and then go back to that first keyframe, and then let's just move Ukraine off screen. And then let's click on our stand width, hit P, and just line up these keyframes. So that way they're going to end at the same place. Stand with Ukraine is going to go up top. Let's go to the second set of keyframes, keyframe assistant, easy, ease in, pull those over. So that way they have the same style of animation where they come in fast and then end slow, like that. Okay, so obviously we need to do some offsetting here. So we want our stand width to come in first. Then we want our line to animate in about right here. So grab this line layer here and hit left bracket where my playhead is. And we just watch that play back. So we have this animation where it comes in, the line animates, and that looks cool to me. So now we need to just animate this back out. So we can grab these keyframes, copy, paste, grab these keyframes, copy, paste. We can select all four of them, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse. That way they go in the opposite direction. Now we want to time this with the way this next scene transitions in. So let's grab these and kind of just play with the timing a little bit. Something maybe kind of like that, so it gets out of the way just in time. Maybe we'll make Ukraine go out a little bit sooner. So you can get this a little bit more precise if you want. I'm just trying to get it so that way it looks good on the animation out. And as we can see, it looks like, see it starts to overlap there. So we need to go a little bit faster. Stand width needs to come over like that. Okay, so I mentioned that we need to make sure you label your layers, you color code your sections, which we've done, and we also need to trim. So select all of the layers from text one control down to text box, Option or Alt right bracket, and then it'll end it right where your playhead is. It's not exact, but it's close enough. That way you don't have these layers that go the entire length of your timeline and to clutter things up. So now we need to do our next set of text, and this is going to be this yellow layer here. We still have all these highlighted. Command or Control D to duplicate. With all of them selected, drag it up to the top, and then go ahead and let's make this yellow. So that way we know this group goes with this footage here. Now, I think it's really important about these expressions is you have to reconnect everything. So I'm going to change my text first. So stand with, I'm going to change to End the War. Ukraine, will make that Support the People. Something like that. Support the people. Bring your position on Support the People and End the War. And just somewhere in the middle here where there's no animation, put your playhead in there and then get rid of these keyframes by just clicking the stopwatch. So if you have nothing selected and you click it, they'll all disappear. That way we can line this up better. Remember, we want to design first and then animate second. As you can see, we've lost our text boxes, and that's because we have to reconnect everything. Okay, so there are two things you need to reconnect. You need to reconnect your text box and your position of your text box. Let's do from top to bottom. I'll even move this up so that way it's a little easier to follow. So this is End the War, and this is the text box for it. Hit EE. Our S equals is still connected to stand width because we duplicated it. Make sure you take this pick whip here, your expression pick whip, go to End the War. Okay, and now remember we need to grab our position, which is still linked to stand width, and parent that to End the War. So now it should be right there. Looks like I got rid of the equal sign by accident, so put that back in there. So now it goes around that, and we'll do the same thing with Support the People, EE for both of those. For our text box, we have this S equals this comp. Make sure you just grab from this to the parenthesis, and then parent that to Support the People, P for Support the People, and then do that. There we go. Now we can actually play with some of the colors on this. So our first section, we had the blue background, yellow text. Let's go yellow background, blue text. So this is our text box for Support the People. You have to make sure you get your selector tool, and your shape layer control panel pops up. Click on the fill and just color pick the yellow, and then Support the People. Colors dictated over here by our character control panel. Color pick the blue. And then we'll do the same thing for End the War. Text box, we want that to be yellow. And then we want our text to be blue. And we'll actually put our line underneath Support the People. So when we click on our shape layer here, we can see that our handles pop up. So let's just go the full length. So that way it will animate in like that. So we get something like that. Okay, so now I'm doing something a little bit different with this animation. So let's go to the very beginning of these layers here, select all of our text and text boxes, left bracket, so that way they're lined up completely. I'm going to go after the transition. So left bracket again, it moves them over. Let's animate the position of in the war. We'll put a keyframe for position, shift page down twice to go for 20 frames, put another keyframe, come in from the right, maybe with this. And we're actually going to start about right here, and I'll show you why in just a second. And then for support the people, same thing, keyframe, go to where this other keyframe is, put another keyframe, come back, and we'll come in from the left this time. And you don't have to go completely off screen, so just about maybe right there. Now let's select these last two keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease in, and then we will pull the handles over all the way to the left so they come in fast and then in slow. So we have something that looks kind of like that. And the reason why I don't want to go all the way off screen is because there's something you can do here to kind of give this a little bit of an extra feel to it. Go to Effects and Presets and type in Fade In. You have this Fade In Out frames. I've actually made a quick tip about this. This is a great preset. It fades your layers in and out based on the layers in and out points. So I'll add this to the text box for support the people. Double click. As you can see, it comes in default at 15 frames. We want to make it 5 instead. So this is 5 frames on the in, 5 frames on the out. I'm going to solo this layer. So what I meant by it fades in on your in and out points, see it fades in right here, and then we go to the end of it, it will fade out based on where your out point is. You can move this wherever you want. It will always do that fade out. So it's a very cool thing. Also a good way to avoid using too many keyframes, especially if you want to fade something in or out. Fade in out frames is a lifesaver, and I use it all the time. So now let's grab this fade in out and we're going to copy it. The reason why is because it defaults to 15 frames. We changed ours to 5. So you can copy the effects from that layer, select these other 3 layers, which are the 2 text layers and the other box layer, and paste it. So now everything has that fade in. So say if you fade it in, you don't have to bring the position all the way off screen. We can even kind of play with the speed of this. So maybe we make this a little bit longer. We can offset this. Something like that, or maybe we'll go in the opposite direction since In the War should come on first. Something like that, and then we want our line to come in under Support the People at about the right point when it starts to stop. So we have something that looks kind of like that. And now our first set of text was in the center of our comp. Let's move this around. So that's why I wanted to add in this text control, because it allows us to move this very easily. We can put this anywhere we want. Now see how our In the War isn't exactly left flush with Support the People? I want to fix that. So if I click on In the War, I can just put a keyframe for position in here and then click position, and now it highlights all of our keyframes. So now you can move this, your other position values will update with that because you're moving all the keyframes at once. Really quick tip, add in a keyframe, and this goes for any value, position, scale, rotation, opacity. Click on that value, for example, position, and it highlights all of your keyframes, and now you can move it and your values will update along with it. What we have is something like this. Still comes in a little bit too soon. You can see our transition hasn't completed yet. So I'm going to grab all of these and move it down a little bit. Something kind of like that. Okay, so now we need to animate this off. We don't need to animate our line because it's already animated off. So we're going to grab these keyframes, copy paste. Grab these keyframes, copy paste, select all of those, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse. So that way they go in the opposite direction. And again, this needs to be timed so it doesn't interfere with our transition out, which is going to be about right there. So let's grab these, maybe move them down a little bit. That way it doesn't interfere. So now if you grab these 2 layers, Option Alt right bracket, it brings our playhead over. The same thing for this layer. Go to this last keyframe, Option Alt right bracket, and then so that will go off to the right and then fade out as it goes out. So like that. Perfect. So this is our animation. Comes in, kind of hangs for a second when the line comes in, and then it goes right back out with our transition. So our transition, let me see, I think I've got a little bit more room maybe for this In the War. Something like that. Now select all the layers in the yellow text group, Option or Alt right bracket, and that way that will trim it. And then we just have one more text area to animate for this orange section. So we're going to grab all of our yellow text group area, Control Command D to duplicate, move that to the top, change the color to orange, so that way we know what to line it up with. We're going to move this over and do the same thing we did last time. I like to show you how to do the same thing several times, so that way it kind of sticks in your head. I know that helps me to do it multiple times. Let's click U to bring up all of our keyframes. We don't need to worry about this line because that's always going to animate the same way. And just click the stopwatch to get rid of all of our keyframes. Change our text to "Everyone deserves to live in peace." So now we need to reconnect our text box. EE, S equals, remove the "in the war" and put that to "Everyone deserves." We want to connect our position to the "Everyone deserves" position layer. So that way that pops right back on there. Same thing for "to live in peace." So EE, change our S equals "support the people" to live in peace. And then our position here, we want to parent that to the position of "to live in peace." Okay, so now let's move this around a little bit and get it where it needs to be. So again, we want to design before we animate. Bring our position for "Everyone deserves" and "to live in peace." And now let's move this down, maybe way down here, "Everyone deserves." And now see, this text control, when it was brought in dead center. And that helps us out. If we look at the position of "Everyone deserves," we can change this -225 to 0, and it will center it in our comp. Same thing to "live in peace." And the reason why is because this layer is parented to this null object, and the null object is in the middle of our comp. So "Everyone deserves" is now 0x pixels from the center of our comp, so it's centered. So now we can change the size of our text. And the way to do this is not through the text layer. What I mean by that is if you bring up scale and you start to play with this, you see the text box doesn't go with it. You need to adjust the character size from the character control panel because of the way the expression interacts with our text. It will only resize based on your character's font size, not the scale size of your layer. So make sure that you're doing this from the character control panel. Maybe line this up a little bit better. And then I'm going to change the color of this again. So we're going to click on our box. We're going to make that the blue. And then we want our text to "live in peace." Go to our character control panel, make that the yellow. Actually, maybe we'll leave this one of each color just to kind of do something a little bit different. The first text group we had was the blue background, yellow text. Second one was yellow background, blue text. And the last one is a combination. Okay, and now we just need to make sure that our line animation is in the right spot. Maybe put this under "to live in peace" to kind of highlight that message. So we'll put the line here to here, and we'll see how this is going to kind of come in, like that. So we've done something different each time. I'll do something different again. Go to Effects and Presets and type in "set matte," and let's add a set matte to this "Everyone deserves." And it defaults to the layer it's on. So see right now it's saying the set matte is on itself. Set it to the layer underneath it, which is our text box. If we were to adjust the size of our text box, say we'll unclick this. Now see how you can't see the text. The text is matted onto that layer. If we didn't have that set matte on, you would be able to see the text outside of it. So that's why we're adding the set matte, because we're actually going to animate this box right here. The way you're going to animate this, make sure you're inside of your resizable box, and it's going to be the transform properties of that. So not the layers transform scale, or not the rectangle path scale, which you couldn't animate anyway because of the expression, but it needs to be the transform properties of the resizable box. So make sure we're at the beginning of the layer and put a keyframe for scale, shift page down twice, another keyframe for scale, go back to the beginning, and now we're going to make this X value 0. So it's going to be 0, 100. So that will open up, as you can see right here, the way it's already starting to animate in. It's going to make it where it opens up like that. So from middle out. And we want to right click this second keyframe, make it an easy ease in, go to graph editor and pull these handles over. So that way it's going to open up like that. And maybe we'll make the animation a little bit longer. So we'll say something kind of like that. We want to make sure we move this over so that way it's not interfering with our transition also. So come over a little bit and it'll be like something like that. Okay, and let's do the same thing for "to live in peace." So select "to live in peace," double click set matte. It defaults to itself, so put it on the text box underneath it. If you hit U, just select the text box we just animated, hit U, select scale, copy. And so that way we're going to copy those keyframes. We go down to text box here, and we're going to open up our resizable box, go to its transform properties, make sure you're at the beginning of the layer, click on scale and paste it. So that way we're going to have the same kind of animation for both of these text layers like that. Since we duplicated the last text group, it came over with whatever we had on it, which was the fade in and out frames preset. So if we select fade in and out and then the solid composite and get rid of that on all of these layers. So that way there's no fade in on any of these layers here. We'll just get rid of that. Get rid of that. So that way there's no fading in. Everything starts from an opacity of 100. And it's because of the way we're animating this in. Okay, so I'm going to go to the beginning of Everyone Deserves, keyframe for position, shift page down twice. Another keyframe, we'll go to the beginning of that layer, and now I'm going to animate it from the right a little bit. Go to Keyframe Assistant, ease that in. If you're noticing a pattern, for all of these keyframes, we're just easing in and pulling the handles to the left. It's a good look, and it's something that's very easy to remember and is consistent with all the animation for this. So see, it kind of has this position and scale movement at the same time, which is kind of cool. So it's opening up as it's moving. And let's do the same thing for this To Live in Peace. Put in some keyframes here, and we're going to come in from the left instead of the right. And this can be just kind of like a random setting. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the Everyone Deserves, other than the graph editor. But as far as, I mean, like where the animation begins, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. It kind of looks good sometimes if it's a little bit random or a little bit off. It just makes it look a little more creative. And now see, we can actually even take these position keyframes, pull them out a little bit further from our scale animation. So it kind of comes in, but then it kind of slowly goes to its final resting spot. So something kind of like that. And again, we want our line animation to come in once To Live in Peace is already there. So let's move that down, hit U to see our keyframes right there. And now we don't need to animate this out because this is the last segment of this little animation here. And now you can use this template in pretty much any kind of video that calls for this style. Whenever you change the text box will automatically change size with the text. You can do all kinds of things with the positioning and with the fading in. You can animate the box so that way it's opening up as things are moving around. The main thing to remember is this. You want to make sure that whenever you make a copy of this text animation, you need to reconnect the text box, EE. This S equals needs to go to the layer of the text that it's corresponding to. And make sure you use the pick whip that's the expression pick whip, which is this one right here. Not this one. It has to be this one. Okay. And then also you want to bring up your position of both. And you want to make sure that your position of your text box is parented to the position of your text. So don't forget on the text we created, we also have this expression on our anchor point, which centers your anchor point in your text layer, which is very helpful because as you noticed, we increased the size of our text in the text boxes using the character control panel font size. Normally, whenever you do that, it will throw your anchor point off. It'll either go up or down. Since we have this expression, that anchor point will always be centered in that text layer, which is exactly what you want. So I know this was a lot of information. This is a very, very long tutorial. I thought it was very important to kind of take our time with this one because it's for a good cause. This is for the people of Ukraine. This is to support them. Again, anything that you buy at our After Effects store or the Udemy course while this war is going on, and we'll probably even extend it after that, half of the proceeds will go to the people in Ukraine because they need so much help. I don't really consider this a political video. It's just something, it's for humanity, it's for peace, and it's for a very, very good cause. So I wanted to give you a tutorial that was worth your time. You didn't get a 7-minute tutorial. You didn't get commentary. You got a full-on tutorial with me trying things out, experimenting a little bit, just doing things that I don't normally do in these tutorials in order to save time. But I wanted to give you something that was worth your time. And if you donate, it's going to be worth your money. I really appreciate you watching my channel and for supporting. Please comment, like, subscribe if you haven't already done that. Share this channel and this video with as many people as you know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I want to thank Envato Elements for sponsoring this episode, and also thank my viewers for making this sponsorship possible. For designers, editors, and animators, Envato Elements is an amazing resource. With your membership, you can download unlimited assets for anything you could possibly want or need for your projects. Get access to high-res stock videos and photos, as well as motion graphic templates for titles, video displays, logo animations, lower thirds, infographics, promos, openers, and so much more. You also get access to backgrounds, textures, patterns, and icons, which we all know are vital resources. You get access to music for your sound beds in virtually any style or genre you can possibly imagine for designing the perfect sound for your projects. Speaking of sound design, you have access to Envato Elements' entire sound effects database, which includes any sound you could possibly need or want for anything from short film production to commercials to logo stingers. Every asset comes with commercial and non-commercial licensing at no extra cost, so both you and your clients can produce amazing projects with peace of mind. And again, with your membership, you get unlimited downloads of all of these assets from Envato Elements. Download as much as you want, as often as you want, without ever having to pay for individual projects or files. Check out Envato Elements from the link in the description below and get 70% off the first month. That means you have access to everything from Envato Elements for less than $10. It's an unbelievable deal, and I highly recommend you check it out. I hope this tutorial helped you out and that you learned something new and useful. Make sure to come back next time for another tutorial that will expand your knowledge of After Effects while also teaching you some really cool tips, tricks, and shortcuts. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Support our channel by getting your 7-minute AE merch today at our online store. And sign up for my Udemy course, The Power of Shape Layers. It's guaranteed to make you a shape layer rockstar. The link to that course, to our 7-minute AE store, and the project files for this episode are all in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.